Head Hopping by J. Wilburn. Penelope Gago was quite used to seeing things and hearing things in her head. Compulsions drove her to do many things, but not usually like this. She ran from the hunters without understanding why she was hunted, or even how she knew. Through the fine glass doors and into the marble lobby, Penelope knew she didn't belong, but she had to get away. It was lovely to feel the warmth inside, but the security guard already rounded the desk to expel her. This was something she knew well. This was why she didn't try coming inside places much anymore. Alright. But the hunters followed, so it was time to leap. Alright, what's the guard's name? Derek Aberdeen. Walked with determination and planned to usher this homeless woman right out to the street. If he did it well, the bosses wouldn't notice, and she wouldn't make a scene. Oh, thanks for chopping in during lunch break, man. I appreciate it. I just took my lunch break. Had to fight the urge to take a nap, otherwise this would have been a long stream with a boring sign on it. So I appreciate you jumping in for a little while. If he did it well, the bosses wouldn't notice that she wouldn't notice, and she wouldn't make a scene. He wouldn't hurt her, but he'd used a firm grip to be sure she didn't mistake them for friends. And so Derek stopped in mid-stride as his consciousness took a step back inside his skull. He was quite... No, we don't use quite again. That's how Penelope talked. He was used to deferring to others outside his head. So it wasn't a rough transition to give up control. So it wasn't a rough transition to give up control to a more powerful presence. Let's say authority. More powerful authority inside his skull. Penelope looked about more confused than she usually was. Derek was losing some of the memories he had carried over from her head. Her history was all in there, but she didn't quite know how to sort it. The downward spiral that had her living on the streets was easy enough. The fact that she was originally from Portugal was not something she normally remembered. Alright, hopefully this isn't too terribly confusing, but it will involve some head hopping, and we're not quite explaining the force that's causing this to happen. Derek grabbed onto one particular piece that would be useful before it all faded like a dream. Penelope. Good Lord. Penelope. She looked up at her name that sometimes she had trouble recalling. Derek smiled. It was something he faked well enough, but it wasn't natural to him or the entity calling the shots just then. "You know me?" she asked, taking a step forward. "The dragons live in here, Penelope. You need to get back outside and flee as fast and as far as you can, or they'll eat you up. Starting Penelope finished for him because, of course, this was her deepest fear in a head full of fears. Starting with my feet, they'll eat me feet first as I watch. Run, Derek whispered. She burst out the door into the street. Fine dressed executives parted for her in shock. Derek Aberdeen. Yes, Aberdeen. Security guard for... Okay, what's this building? For the Porter building on 43rd for the last 8 and a half years, turned on his heel. The hunters might stick to her trail. She was motivated to stay ahead of them. It wouldn't work long, so he needed to move. All right. One of the other guards grabbed Derek by the arm before he could pass the security desk for the elevators. This guy, usually on the afternoon shift, was a pain in Derek's ass. What was that all about? Derek decided to skip sideways into another head. Derek decided to skip sideways into another head instead of wasting time talking. as Pierce Spandle past the arguing guards something like a thought bounced back and forth inside his head. Pierce did not recognize it as an alien presence because he had no point of reference for such things. His head his head was cleaner than Derek's. Cleaner than most. Very, very orderly. And as far as the thing taking control of Pierce's fine-tuned motor skills, as far as the thing taking control of Pierce's fine-tuned motor skills could tell, Pierce was as clean as an arrow. That wasn't the right way to say that phrase, but one of Pierce's quirks that his wife, who he was faithful to, liked best about him was that he twisted up common phrases like that. All right. Derek hadn't been the worst head he'd occupied over the years. But that old security guard liked them young. He just looked, but that was his secret. He'd even gotten his granddaughter to show him how to download TikTok. Pierce wasn't anything like that. Clean as an arrow, he would say with his mousy little wife laughing behind her hand. But there was something, a little thing hidden deep down in the bottom of Pierce's mind. Hold on. Deep down at the bottom of Pierce's mind. He dug down through all the orderly layers of this high-priced lawyer's clean thoughts to get to that hidden piece. He wanted to know what it was, because that's the kind of creature he was. Pierce stood in place, short of reaching the banks of elevators. He twitched and quivered a little on his feet, but not enough for the busy people passing him on both sides to notice. Alright, what else did I say about Pierce? Okay. Alright, but not enough for the busy people passing him on both sides to notice. This thing, this dark pearl, was so beautiful as it hid in the shadows of Pierce's mind. A treasure hidden so deep had to be special. The commotion brought Pierce up out of his internal search and struggle. The entity soared back up through the lighter sections of his mind. Pierce had his own office, 3 floors from the top of the building, and on the corner overlooking the city, of course. This delay would not make him late, because Pierce always left with plenty of time, just in case the subway was delayed, a meeting ran long, or a demonic force possessed him in the lobby. Pierce had time, because though he was technically independent. Alright, let's name this place the Concordate International Investor Services and DST Systems Incorporated was, let me take that period off, was his only client. They essentially made up the whole building. Pierce pulled these details together as he turned around. Just as Pierce feared, the hunters hadn't been delayed long, and he'd been seduced by that dark pearl of a secret. Tatum Inkrell and Scarlet Mac ran from the doors toward the elevators. Either Penelope had pointed out the building, or they were on to him. Either way, he needed to move. As Pierce blinked at Tatum and Scarlet running toward him, Layla Clark took on an extra passenger in her troubled thoughts as she stepped onto the elevator. Balancing the coffee in the cardboard holder, she stopped before she reached the back corner of the elevator where she felt comfortable. The doors closed behind her as she faced the back of the elevator. The other 5 passengers glanced at her and then locked their eyes on the numbers. The other 5 passengers glanced at her and then locked their eyes on the numbers as the elevator rose. Floor. One of them asked. She had to search the information quickly. $20, please. If she would have looked a little deeper, she'd have realized that facing the back of the elevator was making everyone else uncomfortable. But Layla thought that maybe she should get out on a different floor to stay ahead of the hunters. Layla was having sex with her supervisor, Chuck. No hidden pearls of secrets. Let me spell that right. No hidden pearls of secrets for her. Her dirty laundry was scattered everywhere in her head, and she had no idea how to sort it. She had no idea how to sort it. She was afraid to stop the relationship. She had a sick mother she was caring for, but also stealing from. Layla tried to skip over that second detail the thing in her head with her, loved that sort of stuff. All right. Layla thought she might have caught something from good old Chuck. But deep down, and not too deep, she hoped she'd given it to him from earlier mistakes. To the elevator stopped, and two passengers got off. The names Stinky Cheese and grabs his crotch. Hold on. Popped up into her head. Layla to her head. She assumed these were nicknames. She assumed these were nicknames that Layla had given them. Their real names did not appear to be stored in her memory. All right. She had nicknames for everyone in the elevator. She had nicknames for everyone in the elevator, and most people in her life. None of them were flattering. Ironically, Chuck was just Chuck. You're about to spill. Smells his hands, said. Layla blinked and held the coffee. Layla blinked and held the coffee level again. She did not realize the elevator had started again until it binged on 20 and the doors opened. She considered riding up higher, but then stepped out backward off the elevator and onto the busy floor. The last three guys in the car exchanged uneasy looks as the doors slid closed, with her staring at them. Layla Clark was not a vehicle for quick moving or quick thinking. Too much clutter. The extra passenger bailed out the back of Layla's head and landed in another passing by. Without missing a beat, Layla turned toward her desk as if this sort of disruptive thinking was nothing new. Alright, here we are. Chloe Gundy. Alright, I'm going to have to take a bathroom break here real quick, but I'll be back shortly. Alright, wash my hands and everything, so we're good to go. Alright, Chloe Gundy was not much of a step up. Where Layla was cluttered in her thoughts, Chloe's mind felt like it had a layer of grime over everything. Not that it was a problem for her to be in a dirty mind, but this mind was both dirty and uninteresting. The latter part was intolerable to her. Chloe at least moved away from the elevator. Had to keep moving because the hunters were on the move. Alright, what about Chloe? Chloe had just that morning sent an anonymous letter to Charles's wife about dear Layla. Alright, what else? Chloe also put vinegar in Charles's coffee. Not enough to notice, but enough to give him the runs. That's why she had been walking up on Layla in the first place. Chloe looked down at the eyedropper filled with vinegar. She pulled up the memory of filling it last night with her cats walking all around the kitchen table. She dropped it with a clunk into a waste basket as she passed. Amateur mischief at best, and she had no time for it now. All right. Let's keep this moving. Sexist, homophobic, caveman. That's what Charles was. She hated him and everything he touched. Hated him to the point of distraction as she tried to find a way to escape. Alright, what do we do here? She liked to steal pages from the middle of his reports before Layla delivered them in hopes of getting them both in trouble. All right. When that bored her, Chloe stole things from the desks of others and placed them in plain sight on Layla's desk. No one believed Layla stole them, and Chloe couldn't understand why. She rolled Chloe's eyes at herself as she scanned the open office plan to look for anything she could use to escape the hunters. Anything. Tatum grabbed one arm and Scarlett grabbed the other. She tried to struggle free as the hunters pulled her toward the elevators. Chloe wasn't strong. Okay. Scarlett took out the amulet. Scarlett took out the amulet to capture the thing possessing Chloe. Pardon me. She wasn't strong, but she could be loud. So Chloe screamed. "They're attacking me. Help. They have guns. Guns." Alright. That created a panic. No one came to help, but everyone moved. She shot herself from Chloe's head into the chaos to land wherever she could. Once she started screaming, Chloe didn't stop even after she was in her own head alone and the hunters had let her go. Victoria Hanbury went from frozen fear and confusion to fear and complete understanding as the new mind took over the works and started moving away from the hunters with everyone else. Vicky, let's keep her name Victoria. Victoria worked for Human Resources on floor 26. She looked for answers to her problems in that map in her head, but found none. So she kept walking on the heels, killing her feet. Alright. Let's keep this party going. Alright, moved. She was cheating on her husband a lot. It was a wonder she had time for anything else. She wasn't sleeping with Charles and never would, but she hired and moved Layla to Charles's station because he took a liking to her during the interviews. Victoria found out Layla had been let go from her last job for sleeping with another superior. She had been paid and let go with a good recommendation to keep it quiet. She had been paid and let go with a good recommendation to keep it quiet, but those kinds of things seldom stayed secret. Old Victoria had fed that poor girl to Charles. This was interesting stuff, but she needed to focus on escaping the demon hunters. Tatum. All right. Tatum stepped into her path, and Victoria knew Scarlet would be sneaking up from behind, probably with the amulet out. She leapt. Alright. Let's do some rapid ones here. Forrest Adele was a trust fund drug dealer doing an internship on floor 20 to keep Daddy on the top floor happy. He had done some interesting dirty things to settle his many hidden debts. All Forrest's bad habits were costly. A fortune in his name doled out too slowly for his tastes. Such interesting depravity, but he stood too close to Victoria, and Scarlet's eyes fell upon him. Moving on. Alright, so we got this demon trying to jump from person to person ahead of the hunters. Corey Storm took a sharp turn and moved against traffic away from the hunters. Corey was addicted to porn and was getting into deeper, darker things to get the job done. He was being blackmailed by someone in IT that was stored in his head only as Ashy. Shouldn't have looked at that stuff. Shouldn't have looked at that stuff on the office computer. Idiot. Alright. Going against the flow of panicked traffic, singled him out to the hunters. So off he went. As Corey blinked and turned to run the way everyone else was going. Alright, as Corey blinked and turned to run the way everyone else was going, Madison Valero blinked and tried to be very still as she thought very still as she stood in one of the conference room doorways. Okay. Now let's figure out what her deal is. Alright. She was the only female partner at Concordate. Very tough, but nothing interesting or helpful with shaking demon hunters in that fact. Madison. Okay. Madison hated every time she found herself trapped on 20. It was always a problem. Hunters or not. Alright. Always a problem, hunters or not. The whole floor stunk of Charles's musk and his endless bullshit. Okay, what's next, Madison? It was kind of the aroma of hopelessness and ear sweats. Okay. Madison searched her head for any answers. What answers were there for demon hunters in an office in an investment firm's office. Hidden weapons, secret escapes, anything. Madison searched her mind and found random facts instead of useful ones. Okay. Madison searched her mind and found random facts instead of useful ones. Madison, okay. She was Jewish, but everyone thought she was Spanish, and she liked that, let's say Latina, and she liked that, so she let them think it. Alright. What else about Madison? She was going to fire Chloe as soon as she made a good enough case to satisfy that woman. Vicky in HR. Then she was going to fire Vicky. She searched her knowledge of the other people scurrying around the floor. Madison didn't know most of their names, but then there was Eleanor Quickle heading toward a different stairwell from everyone else. So Madison found herself alone in her head again. So Madison found herself alone in her head again without ever leaving the doorway. Eleanor stopped short of the stairwell, short of the stairwell door, as her eyes darted from side to side. She was surprisingly strong. Maybe this was the slim chance for escape that she needed. She'd have to be smart and precise. Old Eleanor might do the trick. She was a compliance officer with the firm. Nothing interesting about that. Alright. Nothing interesting about that. She spent a lot of time bailing out Charles from under all his BS. And the idiot clients who couldn't stop breaking the law in the absolute dumbest and most obvious ways. Okay. Interesting stuff, but not helpful with the current crisis. Eleanor went by Ellie Quick when she fought in cages for MMA, for independent MMA promotions. All right. Ellie Quick opened the door to the stairwell with a smile. Ellie Quick opened the door to the stairwell with a smile. She had the endurance to run the stairs, and probably faster than the hunters could keep up. But she had other plans. She stood and waited. Tatum, I'm going to use his last name again, Inkrell, stepped into view without Scarlet at his side. She wasn't sneaking up. She wasn't sneaking up this time. This might be the only window. Eleanor turned to the stairwell and yelled, "Jill." Jill, what's wrong? Why are you acting crazy? What happened to you? Jill. Tatum pushed past Eleanor without moving her solid muscle on her frame very much. He also did not give her much of a look. Who is Jill? How was she acting strange? Jill was the name of Eleanor's niece that she pulled up from surface memory when she needed any old name she could get. Alright. Any old name she could get. Jill had gotten, say, Little Jill. Little Jill had gotten herself pregnant, and Eleanor was helping her get rid of the problem without telling her sister about any of it. Jill is normally so calm. I don't know what got into her. Jill is normally so calm. I don't know what got into her. Alright, Jill is normally so calm. I don't know what got into her. Jill is normally so calm. I don't know what got into her. I was afraid she would hurt herself running like that in heels. Tatum stepped. Okay, let's have okay, here we go. Tatum stepped into the well and looked over the railing as Eleanor slipped her loose blouse over her head behind him. As the door swung closed on them, he turned and took in a breath. Eleanor guessed that the demon hunter had planned to call we don't need to do this. Okay, Tatum stepped into the stairwell. Okay, she doesn't need to do that. She can just choke him without using something. As the door swung closed on them, he turned and took in a breath. Eleanor guessed that the demon hunter had planned to call for his partner, but she grabbed him from behind and locked on a perfect choke. His words squeaked out into nothing as his airway closed. He threw punches behind him into her ribs, and head, but they had no power. Tatum braced his foot on the railing and pushed backward. Eleanor hit the crash bar and the door swung open into the office. Is that how it would work? How did those doors swing? They probably swing the other way. Alright, let me fix that. Eleanor hit the door with a boom, but the crash bar was on the other side, so she held on as he went limp. The door swung open and Eleanor fell to her back in the office. Tatum gasped for air as she released him, but she couldn't get out from under him as Scarlett lowered the amulet to her forehead. She felt the thing drawing her out to be captured. Hold on. Hit my caps lock there. To be captured for another stretch of eons. Okay. Almost to the end here. She threw herself sideways, not with Eleanor's body, but out from her mind. It was a blind rush as Eleanor scrambled out from under Tatum in confusion. The entity landed in another mind, say another head, that hadn't moved since the panic started. Charles Rowe, VP of Operations and Client Services for Concordat, sipped his coffee as he watched the strangers manhandling that ballbuster Eleanor, what was her name? Quickle. This was the first coffee he'd had in ages that didn't taste vinegary. Alright, let me fix Quickle here. Alright, this will be the last jump, so this is about to be captured. He had left every job he ever had for some kind of harassment. He had left every job he ever had for some kind of harassment. But made a deal just as quickly and moved on to bigger and better things every time. Okay, here we go. Let's do new paragraph. Old Pierce from downstairs and his corner office on the 3rd floor from the top was the straight arrow where he kept his darkness in a hidden pearl too deep to uncover, Charles. Okay, let's see. Call him Chuck again. Chuck's head was full of such unimagined evil that it could hardly be contained within the bones of his skull plates. The entity had hopped from one head to another for centuries before it was captured the first time. It had hopped many more since escaping the amulet again. Modern times had brought no new evil. New toys, new opportunities, but the evil was old and familiar, even when abundant. Until now. The darkness of Chuck, what's his name? Chuck Rose' mind was worse than being trapped in the amulet. The things Chuck had done and the worse things he had thought about doing, the things he planned to do, the entity had never imagined such depravity, and certainly never experienced it from the inside. He forgot about the hunters a few feet away. He even thought for the first time in his timeless existence that he might have a duty to drop Chuck is the Porter building, and spread the pieces of his mind across, let's say wet, his mind wet across 43rd. At the very least, he should try to open the skull against the corner of a desk. A being like this, a mind like this, did not belong. Hold on. This did not belong in the world. Scarlet applied. Let's put the extra T on for Scarlet. And let's spell it correctly. How am I spelling her name? Gotta put an extra E in there, that's the problem. Alright, Scarlet applied the amulet to Chuck's forehead with that shocked, terrified look painted across his face. He never saw it coming. Not within all that pure darkness. His eyes rolled up and he spilled his hot coffee over his chest as he collapsed. The demon welcomed the emptiness and boredom within the amulet. Part of him knew that Chuck was still alive out there with all his evil thoughts and plans. Someone should warn the hunters of the real monster. But that was beyond the entity now. This creature, this presence, enjoyed the uninteresting space for the moment as its consciousness dissipated. It might never try to escape again after leaving the horrors of that mind. All right, there we go. That is head hopping.